For many of us, a modern waterside apartment might seem like the ideal investment, but it's been a major disappointment for the residents of one Cardiff development. Cardiff Bay, once a working dock exporting coal across the world, but now a magnet for those who aspire to a luxury home on the waterside. When the Celestia development was marketed, its apartments were highly desirable. Years later, residents say they're stuck in buildings that are badly constructed and dangerous. So when you buy a flat, who is ultimately responsible when things go wrong? Who is it that should be footing the bill? That's the question that's been causing sleepless nights for residents in these flats. Denise Currell has been living here since 2012, and the problem started on the day she moved in.
It very quickly became apparent that there was a lot of dampness. We discovered that it was coming from a fractured soil stack, which runs right from top to bottom of the building. And what was actually soaking the walls, soaking the bedroom carpet, soaking into the furniture was actually sewage that was coming down from the upper flats. And then the bedroom carpet was just completely soaked with it. My shoes, my clothes, everything absolutely soaked. And for 5 years this went on, and it was just awful. I can't even tell you how bad it was to open the front door and for that smell to hit you.
Faulty plumbing is not the only problem residents here have had to deal with. David and Anne Botterill have lived in the Celestia development since it was opened in 2006. They paid more than £340,000 for this flat with a balcony overlooking the water. But it wasn't what it seemed.
At the residents' meetings, some people were finding the balconies quite springy. And so there was a sort of investigation by the managing agent using consultant engineers, and they started to identify some potential problems with the way in which the balconies were joined to the structure of the building. So it made us think then, what about our balcony? And of course, when we started to walk on it, we started to feel very anxious.
Their worst fears were realised when all the balconies in the development were declared unsafe.
Earlier this year, we had an edict issued by the management company that we were not to use the balconies at all.
And it gets worse. In the wake of the Grenfell fire, all high-rise buildings in Wales were checked for fire safety, and the results here were not good. A detailed investigation revealed some very serious shortcomings in these buildings, and many of the fire safety measures promised in the brochures simply aren't there.
The South Wales Fire Service found that there was a lack of fire stopping between apartments and a lack of proper alarm systems. Celestia is clad with cedar, which at the time of building wasn't outside of spec, but now it's got to come off, and we understand that that's the biggest cost item of putting the development right, and that's what's causing the worry for people, is that they don't know where they're going to find the money for this.
Residents have recently been told they can expect to pay around £14,000 each for essential remedial work. That's an estimated total of more than £6 million.
We haven't got the money. We have not got the money to front up with thousands of pounds to put these problems right.
And as a result of all these problems, many residents who wanted to sell found that they couldn't.
Who would want to buy an apartment with all these defects? You know, they wouldn't be safe here. We're not safe here. So how could we possibly sell it to anyone else?
We're prisoners here. We're trapped in this because there's no way out. Because until somebody takes responsibility, we're going to remain in an apartment that we can't sell, people can't raise mortgages on.
Is anybody holding their hands up and saying, look, we messed up?
Nobody is taking responsibility. Everybody's passing the buck around and around and around.
When Celestia was completed in 2006, it was Redrow who marketed and sold the flats. The residents we've spoken to believe that the company should be footing the bill to fix the problems.
When the problem started in the complex, we just imagined we'd see lots of Redrow vans here, lots of workmen, but it didn't happen.
It turned out that Redrow had transferred ownership of Celestia to another company several years earlier.
I find it very difficult to understand that Redrow, who commissioned it, who sold it, are now so able to divorce themselves from any responsibility for it.
If anybody is considering purchasing a property from Redrow, I'm just urging them to think very carefully and to listen to us and our experience of dealing with Redrow Homes.
Well, we asked Redrow why the company hasn't addressed the residents' concerns. They say that they handed over the warranties provided by the contractor and the designers of the apartment at the time the freehold was sold some years ago. They also point out that the development did comply with the building regulations in place at the time it was built. However, there is some good news because Redrow is now proposing to fund the fire-stopping work recommended in that fire service report at no cost to the residents now or in the future. They also propose to install a new fire alarm system. However, there is no word on the other structural defects which could end up costing the residents several £1 million.